Hello, everyone. This is Ken Caldwell. I'm Dean of the School of Business at University of Houston, Victoria, and I'm joined today by Jeff Blodgett. Dr. Blodgett is a professor of marketing at UHV. He earned his PhD from Indiana University in 1992, and he taught at several other universities before coming to UHV in 2011. He's authored more than 30 articles in high-quality journals, and according to Google Scholar, his research has been cited more than 9,000 times. His primary areas of research have revolved around consumer satisfaction, dissatisfaction, service settings, and more recently on children's advertising. He's been an entrepreneur and has traveled to several countries in Europe, Middle East, Central, and South America. So welcome, Jeff.
Thank you very much.
Jeff, we are going to today discuss some of your ongoing research on consumer satisfaction and dissatisfaction. So let me jump right in. The retail world today is more competitive than ever, and it seems that every store, both brick and mortar and online, guarantees satisfaction or your money back as a way to entice customers. With everyone doing so, is that really a profitable thing to do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And, because if everybody's doing it, then theoretically it's not an advantage for any one store. But, we probably all know that, some stores do it better than others. And to give you a little history of it, this really goes back to a long time ago. Back in the early 1900s, when Sears started, they were a mail order catalog. And so they started offering money back guarantees. And then LL Bean, they've been around for a long time out of Maine, and they would offer money back guarantees. And so if somebody bought a pair of boots and they wore the boots for 20 years and they wore out, they could send them back in and get a new pair of boots. And then more recently, probably back in the 1960s and 70s, Nordstrom's in Seattle, they're renowned for their customer service. And they also have this policy that if anybody brought anything back, the customer's always right. And so these type of stores over time, they gain an advantage. And so then other stores started doing it as well. And then Walmart came along and they had this kind of the same policy. And so here in the US, it's really kind of evolved to where everybody does it. And, it's really all about, customer lifetime value. They look at what a customer is worth over their lifetime. And, and from that respect, when the customer brings something back, whether the customer is right or wrong, it is profitable to do whatever to satisfy that customer.
Interesting. Well, some research shows that consumers in other countries, particularly the Far East and the Middle East, are more reluctant to complain when they're dissatisfied as compared to consumers in the US. And they attribute this difference to cultural values. You've also done research in this area. What have you found?
Yeah, as I've traveled around, I found out that the same policies that we find here in the US, you don't necessarily find them all over. So my wife is Turkish, and so we started traveling to Turkey and found out if you buy something, you just can't walk back into a store there and return it. Even nice upscale stores. And so, researchers, they do these surveys and they give people scenarios. And they ask people in the US, well, here's a situation. You bought something, you took it back home, you didn't like it, it didn't work, it was broken. What would you do? And they say, well, I'd take it back to the store. Well, then they ask the same thing of people, living in China, who are from India, Turkey, other countries. And their response is different. They say, well, no, I want to take it back to the store. And so based upon those responses, researchers say, well, what is it that makes people in these other countries behave differently? And they look at their underlying cultural values. In the US, we're more of an individualistic type of country, where other countries are more collectivist. And some of the other cultural values like power distance. In America, we feel more free to approach those in authority, where in other countries you don't do that. So these researchers, they look at that and they say, well, people in other countries, people in collectivist countries are reluctant to complain when they're dissatisfied. But again, having traveled, I thought that doesn't sound right. To me, it really all seems about the retail environment. Their stores, for the most part, there's an unwritten rule that once you buy it, it's yours, and you don't bring it back, except under very limited circumstances. So my colleagues and I, we set out to do some research. So we surveyed people living in India, in China, in Mexico, and in Turkey. And then, being that I live in Houston, and Houston is a very diverse area, we also surveyed people who had moved here from India, from China, from Mexico, from Turkey. And we give all these people scenarios and we say, what would you do? And so, cultural values are something that you maintain over your lifetime. So just because somebody moves from China to the US, they're still Chinese. They still have their Chinese cultural values. And so by looking at people living in China, comparing those to Chinese who are living here, and same way with Mexicans and Indians, we held culture constant. And so we engaged scenarios and said, what would you do? And we find out that the people living in the US say, well, I would take it back. And their cohorts who are living in India or China say, well, no, I wouldn't take it back at all. And so by doing that, we roll out culture as the explanatory variable. And so what it really comes down to, it shows that, no, it's the retail environment, because those same people, when they come to the US and they find out that stores, allow you to return items, they do it just like you and I who have lived here our entire lives. And so, I think we kind of debunked that explanation.
That's really interesting stuff. So one last question, Jeff. These days with consumers posting reviews and complaints on social media sites, what is the best way for companies, to respond to those sorts of things?
Well, a lot of companies, they have people, who respond to the social media postings. So there's a lot of sites where you can post reviews. And then, of course, a lot of people who have a bad experience will go on there to vent. And so our research finds that it really depends on the situation. If the problem was something that was not under the control of the retailer or, say, the service provider, let's say it's a hotel, and the power goes off, so the whole city loses power. Well, that's not under control of the retailer. So we find out that other people, when they read that review, they don't hold that against the retailer or the hotel. It's only in those situations where it's really under their control. And in that situation, we find that going online, posting an apology, and then also, more importantly with it, you also say, here's the action we took to make sure it doesn't happen again. That goes a long ways.
Interesting. Well, this is all very interesting stuff, Jeff, and obviously very relevant for people today. So thank you very much for sharing it with us. Again, we've been talking to Dr. Jeff Blodgett, marketing professor at UHV, about some of his really groundbreaking research on customer satisfaction and dissatisfaction. Thank you very much, Jeff.
No, you're quite welcome. Thank you very much.